Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here and to be able to talk about some of the amazing work that our open source community is doing to help others. So my name is James Walker. Let's try that. Nope, not there. Above you. There we go. So my name is James Walker. Reese Gray will be after me. He's actually being zoomed in. But I grew up in Northern Virginia, outside DC. I've always been a technologist. I got a formal degree in computer science at UMass Amherst, but I went to a STEM high school. I've been coding since I was a teenager. That's kind of my background coming into diabetes, where I was diagnosed at age 17, my senior year in high school with T1. So as a now professional software engineer who works on really important hypercalorie systems, it's in a way I think Type 1 has pushed me to think about this kind of like critical domain of things. And I, as a result, have gotten involved in the open source community, and I maintain several open source projects related to type 1 diabetes, and I've worked with a bunch of other folks who also contributed their time and effort to build cool solutions that are helping people. So I'm going to be chatting about those today. So when I was diagnosed, it was almost exactly 10 years ago, in 2016. I didn't know that much about diabetes. My uncle, who funnily enough is a registered physician, was type 1 diabetes, type 1 diabetic, and I knew that, but I didn't think about it very much. When I was initially diagnosed, I didn't think there was that much of an intersection between diabetes and technology. Like, I knew that like insulin pumps existed, but like they kind of at that time looked like bricks. And when I was going through with my healthcare team, kind of on this cut point between doing pediatric endocrinology and full endocrinology as a 17-year-old, there was very little technology involved in the process. The most advanced tool I had was the literal blood glucose meter. I was writing down my sugars on pieces of paper. Now, I did switch to like an app of writing them down, but still, the state of the art of the treatment did not seem to have much alignment with technology, and I didn't necessarily think that my interest in technology would end up involving diabetes. So what kind of changed this for me was when I started looking into, what would it look like if I did want to use some of the technology that was available, and I learned about CGMs, specifically the Dexcom G5, and that really was life-changing around my thought of how to manage diabetes, because now suddenly, instead of pricking my finger like 5 to 10 times a day, I have all of this data. But as a software engineer with that background, my initial next thought was, okay, so like, where am I going to put all this data? Dexcom share and stuff existed. Obviously, Nightscout existed from even before that. We knew. But I wanted to get all this data in the same place, and I was having trouble doing that. Even when I switched to my first insulin pump, I used the t:slim X2. That data, yes, there was eventually a mobile app, but at that time there wasn't. I could get with a Windows software, sync it to like a proprietary cloud. My Dexcom data, I could kind of get that in Nightscout. But I saw a lot of gaps in the ecosystem. And as someone who's always been a hobbyist and enjoyed solving problems, I saw a bunch of areas in which I thought I could help. So, in the mantra of if you can't find what you want, you should just build it yourself, which I think really speaks to we are not waiting. I started building systems that uploaded the food and pump data into Nightscout, so I had all that data in one place. My engineer mindset was, okay, type 1 diabetes, you need to carb count, there's a bunch of numbers, but it's basically just math, right? So if you get all the data in the same place, then you just do some math, maybe do some machine learning, and poof, diabetes is solved. Not that easy, obviously, but the first part of that I wanted to solve was getting all the data in the same place. So I started reverse engineering how with my insulin pump, when I upload the data, where does it go? How can I get that data into, say, Nightscout? And if I'm using an app on my phone to just manually log carbs on what I'm eating, how can I get that data in Nightscout as well? So that I have a single view that shows my glucose, my insulin usage, and the meals I'm having. So that became this Diabetes M, which was the app I was using to sync into Nightscout, and then later T-Connect Sync, which synchronized the data from T-Connect, now tangent source, into Nightscout, so that I could have it all in one place. So as I went through through getting the data off of these devices, it really made me wonder how they actually function beyond that point. So for instance, in the time I started doing this, I needed to like manually plug in my pump into the computer and then upload. So I'd have to like remember to do that every week or so. So I couldn't see the data live. So I wondered, how could I get the data more representative and faster so that then I could actually look at a chart? And I saw, OpenAPS and stuff by this time where they had all that data available in like one place, and you could even have it on your watch and stuff like that. How can I get that with the system that I was using? I think it's really important that, regardless of what devices you have, you should be able to get the best treatment and therapy that is available to you. And it's critical to have devices that connect to do that. So after this, Tandem came out with a mobile app that allowed you to connect the T-Slim to your phone. And that was really exciting for me. In fact, I got a firmware update on my T-Slim pump that showed the option for this connection to the phone even before the actual app was released. So that really interested me. I was like, okay, how does this work? I don't even have that app yet, but like, we're gonna get started. How is it talking on Bluetooth and stuff like that? So I took that and then extended it to, once the app was released, figuring out how I could actually connect to the pump from my phone, so then I could, in this little video that played when we started this slide here, I was able to build a custom Android app that was actually, talking to my T-Slim and delivering a bolus, which was really exciting for me. That was the first part of getting the two devices to work together remotely using an entirely prototype approach. And from there, I wanted to see how could this DIY open source software for connecting this stuff help others. What can be built today that you're not waiting for? So here's what this evolved into, was I have always found it cool and always been a user of like smartwatches. In fact, I have an Android watch and an Apple Watch on me right now because I have two phones. So what I was interested in is, can I if I just want to have a meal, can I just go on my watch and hit say that I want a bolus? Shouldn't have to pull out my phone for that. The pump lets me bolus from the phone. I can't have bolus from the watch. So I was able to create an Android Wear app that ran on my watch that actually let me bolus from the watch through the phone. So I released this as open source software, and I've heard the impacts that this has had on people of this cool idea that I had that actually transitioned into getting an email from a dad who said that his kid played soccer and was with his phone in his pocket, going around playing soccer, and the dad had a smartwatch on his hand and was able to control the insulin delivery and stuff. And I thought that was an amazing outcome with the whole we are not waiting spirit. That's something I hope was able to help people like that. So from that work, and when I went to the Vancouver event that was also a deep data corollary event, I talked with some of the open source validated insulin delivery software folks. So AndroidAPS, Trio, and Loop. And I started seeing if some of the work I had done here around making this custom app for talking to the Mobi could be repurposed into making Mobi closed loopable from the open source algorithm perspective. So we were able to, with a lot of work, able to get that connected. So I saw it as being really important and really valuable for, as Wes said, to keep the we are not waiting spirit alive, to not make open source DIY looping something that can only be done when you contact your endocrinologist, when you switch to one of the 3 supported pumps, and you should be involved, your healthcare team should be involved in the decisions they're making around how you manage your diabetes. But shouldn't we be able to open source loop with whatever devices we already have? How can we make all of these devices interoperable so that we can be more flexible in the options that we present people in our community? So excited to say that due to the work we've done, we are able to add this new pump in addition to some of the other ones that we support due to some of this great work that will hopefully come later this year. As with any community effort, we run into the little snags, the current integration isn't completely perfect with the Mobi being allowed, but regardless, this gives more choice, which I think is something that was a core tenet of Beyond this, I learned as I met with more developers and interacted on our Facebook groups and kind of other community outreach places about a lot of the concerns that some people had in our community that also related to device support. My interest in Mobi started with using Mobi and wanting to let it support more things, but kind of my interest and the reason why I was doing this work really evolved into seeing where there were areas of community need that we could possibly address through better and more software. One of those big areas of need has been, in the community of people using CGMs, we've seen worry with having to switch from G6 to G7 because G6 will be eventually discontinued. We've also seen similar concerns on the insulin pump side around users of Omnipod Eros and then Dash, wanting to make sure that when Omnipod 6 comes around or whatever, they aren't totally unable to get their supplies anymore. In fact, we've even heard from some users in various countries with various diabetic endocrinology teams that even getting a supportable pump to loop with is a real challenge. And I mean, this whole we're not waiting closed loop community after Nightscout developing into OpenAPS really started with this need for specific firmware, Medtronic pumps that then caused a underground community to try and find the pumps that were loopable. So regardless, we want to support as many pumps as we can. So with that, I am excited to be able to make an announcement that a big area of community need that we've seen is allowing folks who love their Omnipods to continue to use Omnipods, even as Omnipod on the commercial front continues to support more and more features with their built-in algorithms. But I'm excited to say that we have been able to get Omnipod 5 working across OSAID systems, and that in fact we have people using it in our community right now, which has been a huge ask from our community to make Omnipod 5 available, and that we plan to make this more widely available this summer. And all of my interest in this kind of work has, it's definitely been, circularly, I've been pushed into seeing how great our community is and where there are areas of need that we can potentially address through software. So that has been what's really been driving me. What started as just a technical tinkerer interest or a rogue cowboy, to quote what a certain person said, of just hacking things and rules be damned, has especially evolved into giving people more options. So, what started as kind of a technical exercise really turned into a, trying to make as much available to the community as possible. With this reverse engineering, we're not only allowing our community members access to their own data, but we're giving them more flexibility and more choice. We're reducing some of and making more straightforward some of the structural barriers that make it a multi-month ordeal for some people to switch pumps or switch CGMs because of insurance inequities and things like that. So I've been very excited to help with this community. It's really been a great group of developers who are involved in this pathway of folks starting from Lane, as was mentioned. We are always gaining people who are getting really incentivized to help out our community, really see the gaps. And I wanted to close on, again, in the next 10 years of Nightscout and We're Not Waiting, what does that mean? It started with just offering an option to people that they were willing to kind of go out on the deep end. Maybe if they didn't even have technical expertise, they would get walked through okay, here's how I build an app, here's how I build my OpenAPS, or that kind of thing. But I personally see, as we discussed in Vancouver, that the future of We're Not Waiting is not only giving an option to our community, but giving as many options as possible, so that with the interoperability in mind, you should be able to use any CGM that you have, with any pump that you have, with any algorithm across whatever system it is that you are using. And I'm excited to, with our community's help, be able to advance that a little bit today. So thank you very much.